Hey everyone, welcome to Softcast. This is your host, Sergeant Major Matt Parrish, and I am excited, as you saw in the title, this is the Season 4 finale, and there's no better way to wrap up an incredible season of Softcast than to have our amazing guest that we have the honor of having in studio today, General Bryan Fenton, the Commander of U.S. Special Operations Command. Sir, an honor and a privilege. Thanks for coming on the show, but also being in person so we can actually have this conversation. How are you this morning?
Yeah, Matt, I'm great. Thanks, and thanks for having me. It's an honor. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller on this one, and it's great to be with you. And also, I got to say this for the team out there, to have been a part of your retirement ceremony yesterday. That was outstanding.
Well, you honor our family by being there. It was an amazing honor. Yeah. You know, I said in my speech, I would have never thought as a young 19-year-old joining the Army that at some point I would have a ceremony with multiple 4-stars sitting there. So the honor was ours. It was a little surreal for sure. You know, the point of this show, to me, when we boil it down, is being able to talk to the people behind the positions, the amazing soft teammates that we have throughout our formation, and to get a little bit of a dive into them as actual humans. A lot of people from the outside, they see the tabs, they see the 4 stars, all these things, and it's almost a mythical person as they walk by, right? The opportunity to be able to dive in a little bit and see who's Bryan Fenton, where does he come from? All of a sudden, if you're out in the formation, you're like, okay, we got a new SOCOM commander. It seems like he might like the Fighting Irish. I get that from him, some of these things. But I want to dive in. Let's start from what makes you want to join the military at all? I'm always curious, what's the call to service?
Yeah, first I got to start with, if there's any thought on any mythical figures anywhere, I think all you got to do is step into a family home, and you find out pretty quickly how many of us say, we're all just trying to make our way in this world and have come from somewhere. So please, I would say to everybody, don't go talk to the Fenton family. You'll find way too much out about me and where I've come from. I think the call to service for all, it starts different for each and every one of us, and if I reflect that it started, nobody in my family first was in the military, so I didn't really understand the military call to service, like folks who grew up either in a military town or from a military family. But there were still a number of World War II veterans in my neighborhood who, while we're out, still would regale us young kids with stories about what they did. And maybe some of them were Vietnam and as well. But I had a next door neighbor. His name was Clint Johnson, and he would talk about being in World War II, and he got shot down. Wow! He was in an air crew that got shot down, and was a POW. And talked about his experiences being a POW. I still remember him telling stories about, as they were trying to plan an escape, they were held by Italians. And they had a teammate in there who was from Brooklyn, who was Italian, who could read and understand Italian newspapers that they got handed. And then they would get the Hershey bars that came in the GI packs. Yeah. And at some point, they were always taken out on a walk, and they used their knowledge of where the Allies were based on the reading of the newspapers and the teammate who could interpret Italian, and the Hershey bar to get a guard to take them out, and then they jumped the guard, and then they were able to escape. Wow. 30 days on the run by Mr. Johnson's recollection, and they finally made it to Allied lines.
That's incredible.
He had a young airman with him as well. That he was the senior airman. He was probably 25, and the kid was probably 21, and he would talk about escape. Didn't know it at the time, but E through the woods and moving through farmhouses and German soldiers, and you just at some point that struck me. And I thought, maybe I want to do something like that. And then I played a lot of sports as a kid and was outside a lot. And a lot of my figures in that arena had military background, coaches. So for me, it was sort of natural. I'd do ROTC in college, and I got a chance to go to basic training. And in basic training, I was at Fort Knox. It was for the cadet program. And it might as well have been, it was July, but it was like another summer football camp. Yeah. And I was like, this is great. Everything in life's not going to be that, that great. But it was, I really thought I found my spot. Yeah. And, as I went through ROTC, figures, whether they would be the first sergeant in my detachment was an infantryman, Sergeant First Class Shuttleworth. He would talk to us as cadets about what the infantry did and the importance of certainly his life and what he learned. And so that impacted me. And then I was a student assistant at Notre Dame on the football team with a coach that maybe folks have heard about. His name is Lou Holtz. And in addition to being a great football coach, he was a great leader trainer. Yeah. Things I learned from him, I've absolutely carried forward, even to this day. And I stay in touch with him. But he had a saying is, we'd be out on the field and he would talk about things. He'd say something. He'd had an MBA. And I thought that's kind of, interesting. You'd talk about that as a football coach. So one day I walked up and said, "Hey, Coach, what do you mean you got an MBA?" And he's got a very unique way of talking. I won't try to replicate it here, but he said, "Hey, Fenton, I have made by Army." And I found out he'd been a lieutenant after his time at Kent State and that he'd done time in the service. And he used to say, a lot of what he learned about leadership and how he coached was about being a platoon leader. Wow. And just being trained and certainly mentored by a platoon sergeant and the great NCOs that he'd had, and what he saw just in the human endeavor, and it translated right to coaching. So a lot of great experiences and mentors, I think, that solidified that the Army and the infantry in the beginning was certainly the right place for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't think I knew that about Lou Holtz, but I think what resonates throughout that whole story is like being on teams and wanting to be a part of a team and wanting to be part, sense of belonging, something bigger than you that we're all driving towards. And I think that's the call for a lot of us, right? We see that as like, hey, I've played sports, whatever, like this is the ultimate team. Let me go be on Team America, so to speak. Obviously, speaking of team, eventually you go and decide to become a Special Forces officer. What was the call for, at what point do you go from like, I want to join the military, hey, I want to be in the infantry, but like, hey, I might want to go do this too. What was the call for service for SF? You heard it. We had various briefings in we were in Army ROTC about the different branches. And you would hear about the Special Forces, and certainly for the Army, you'd hear about special operations, and, writ large for all the services. But the Green Beret mystique would come up every once in a while, and some of these, and you thought, oh, that'd be another opportunity to really be in a different team. Sure. But I think it came home to roost for me when I was a platoon leader with a battalion, 4th Battalion, the 502nd. We were in Germany, assigned to Berlin, and we had to go out on a training exercise. And after the exercise, there was a call for platoons to volunteer to play in an exercise called Flintlock, another exercise. We didn't know what that was. Yeah. A group of us signed up. We said, hey, we'd love to do that. And the mission was to be the opposing force against 10th Group, 1st Battalion. That was down at Bad Tolz. Nice. And, as a platoon leader with a phenomenal infantry platoon, to see another level of what certainly looked at that time and was of experience, of wisdom, of just fitness. We would chase SF teams. In my memory, if we tried to chase them through the forest down near Bad Tolz, we could never catch them. We thought, who are these superhumans, and what are they doing that makes them so incredible? We had a chance after the exercise to have a big old bonfire, kind of like the end of nice. Pineland and Robin Sage, right? Little did I know as an infantry platoon leader. And just talking to these teammates, the sergeants, the staff sergeants, Sergeant First Class, the captain, and just to get a sense of what they had done, what they'd seen. And they were on the leading edge even then of fitness and of deployments. And I thought, hey, I absolutely want to join that organization. How do you do it? And while I'm contemplating that, I also had an opportunity to work for really another great mentor, a guy named Major General Sidney Shacknow. Wow. Long time, absolutely. And what, a young lieutenant takes away from an experience like that is here's a teammate who's, born in another country and comes to the United States through a series of just challenging experiences, adversity, speaks 5 languages. At that time, really had every combat experience you could have, and was an incredible human. And I think for me at the time, it was, hey, I want to be like that, right? Yeah. Like many in our formation, I would imagine they look up, they see Sergeant Major Parrish, and if they could see it, they want to be it, right? And I saw it
a guy like that, and certainly that began my journey of going through assessment selection in the Q course and starting an opportunity to be with with a commander of ODA 716.
Yeah, and in the best the best unit. I won't say it, but 7th Group. But,
I love all of our children equally.
I know you
Matthew.
do, sir. I know you do, sir. But I think it's phenomenal. We talk about it occasionally, but it makes sense, and it should be mentioned more often. Our best recruitment tool is our people, whether currently in the force or successful veterans that have been shaped and molded by this amazing leadership factory and everything that we have, having interactions where you sort of get behind the mystique and realize they're humans and that it's a great life and that you can do it too, and you do have that opportunity to sort of look and say, I want to be like that. Yeah. And, it's interesting how many people have some touch point throughout their life of just that one soft guy or gal that makes them say, it's attainable, it's something I want to do, and I see something in them that I want to go try to emulate. And it's awesome that you had the opportunity in multiple different cases there to have that representation to sort of pull you in. Obviously, if I was able to, this would be like an 8-hour episode, right? Like I want to walk through every single piece of this. Obviously, there's some special mission unit time in there that we can't talk about all that much on this open source podcast. But I'm curious, as you matriculated up from that tactical level of being a commander, a team leader there in 7th Group, and continued to move up through sort of up into the field grade 05, 06 realm. Can you talk to me about your maturation as a leader, your thought process, your perspective shift as you continued to move up? Because obviously you'd been a leader, but this leadership factory doesn't peter out. It continues to get better and better with experience and opportunity. I'm curious to your lens as you rose through.
Yeah. If I can, first, I want to go back to the point on, our folks being the part of the best recruitment. That's right, ambassadors. I absolutely agree with that. And you can see something from afar, and it's got a bit of a mystique to it, and that may either draw you to it or may even cause you to be a little fearful of it and think, hey, I can't do that. But I really give a lot of credit to at that time, whatever ODA that was from 10th Group, so many years ago, I think it was just 89, that sat down and just talked to us. Many of us from that platoon, a number, went the Special Forces route afterwards. I certainly did. And, it was about the human connection that you could see that, as you mentioned, earlier, and just we all come from somewhere, and who they were, what they'd gone through to get there. And you could then start to think, I've started similarly. I could, at least give it a go. And you got to make the standards. You got to make your way through it. So that ambassadorial role, I can't, I can't overemphasize how important that is in being a part of recruiting and showing the nation and our men and women and part of our incredible fabric of this nation that, who we are and what we're all about. And that was an incredible experience. I also had a chance as a platoon leader to take my platoon down to was called the Platoon Confidence Training Course in Bad Tolz. Yeah. It was like my recollection is like a mini Ranger school. Yeah. And to be mentored again by Special Forces teammates and Ranger teammates who had been there in Europe from the Rangers. And it was another level of just competence, leadership, wisdom, and, again, impacting a young platoon leader named Fenton that you sit there and, hey, I absolutely want to give this thing a try. And then to also see it through the lens of General Shack now, really important. I think just to not miss that point of our folks are our best ambassadors, and I know we continue to do that. And I'm very thankful that our teams do that. In the leadership, having an opportunity to serve on an ODA and then certainly serve at various levels, I'll start with, you mentioned it, this is the military, and certainly special operations is probably the most incredible leadership laboratory in the world, in my opinion, and I'll stake the claim on that. And this opportunity to start as a very young teammate, no matter how you come in, right? If you come in and you're Sergeant Fenton or you're Lieutenant Fenton, an opportunity to be able to give a chance to lead, to direct, to listen, 2 ears, 1 mouth, pay attention. This is my platoon sergeant, Sergeant Westall, used to remind me, and it still sticks, to care and to do it and not always get it right, but then to be able to do it at varying scales. You know, for me, a platoon scale, and then the company scale, and then a ODA, and then a troop, and then a battalion or squadron. You get the chance and the impact of leaders who desire to mentor you, show you what right looks like. Team sergeants, platoon sergeants, squad leaders, master chiefs, command master chief. Just as you go on and on, this incredible enterprise, and folks used to ask, what do you think you end up with at the end of your time in the military? And maybe it's deployments, and it's a chance to have done great things. My sense always was 2 really important things. It's the relationships you have with the people. You come for the mission, but you really stay for the people, especially in this organization, where people are more important than hardware. It just shows itself every day. But the leadership, it is a difference maker in the world. And there may not have been hard science behind leadership and its outputs 20 years ago. There are now. There's a body of evidence now. And we were, I would imagine in the military and certainly in soft, early adopters to that. And it didn't feel quantifiable. It might have felt like an SOFT, soft skill, as opposed to if you were an accountant or a doctor. But I think today it's one of the prized hard skills, the leadership. And in our community, you get a chance to do it over and over again, and you have great mentors that take you on the journey, and folks you get a chance to see from. So you get a directive level where 20 people, they hear your voice every day, and have a good feel just based on seeing you and your bodily cues or your facial expressions, what you need to do. And then at some point you're in an operational, a lot more folks as part of your team, and you're trying to reach out to disparate locations and give the same type of commander's intent or command team intent. And then when you do it at the strategic level, I think the basics are the same. You listen, you learn, you absorb information, you make a decision, and you care. And at the strategic level, you just do it probably at scale, and with vision might be extremely important, and your ability to communicate it, but still listening to your formation and learning about what's important and what you have to do as a mission, and then ensuring that the right resources and training there, and then care. So I've learned a lot. I've also learned what not to do. I've frankly messed it up myself quite a few times, and hopefully have grown from it.
I think you made a great point there about the fact that we're able to fail at times and have the opportunity to get it right afterwards, right? Yeah. It's not we don't run a zero defect leadership environment in most cases, unless it's something completely egregious or morally wanting. But the opportunity to step on it sometimes, get corrected, and be able to re-engage and do it again is not always as it's not always as prevalent in other places in corporate America and others. And also the fact that we invest in actually trying to teach leadership is something. As you and I talked earlier about this. As I've been engaging a little bit more into corporate America and some of those things, you sort of hear in these transition things like leadership is needed and you guys have it and all these things. And it's not that there aren't amazing leaders in corporate America, but a lot of times there hasn't been a specific engagement and investment in the principles of leadership and sort of the theory and formulaic understanding of it, that we get the amazing opportunity, as much as we sort of hate it on an ODA when it's like, hey, you got to go to senior leaders or master leaders or whatever it is. You're like, I don't want to go do this. I just want to keep doing the job. But to be able to have theory and application really pays dividends. And I know you've had an opportunity to have investment into leadership 101, 201, 301, 401, and then be able to walk it out. I'm curious, as that span goes, one of the hardest jumps in there's a ton of jumps, obviously, between, platoon leader Fenton and now General Fenton. But that jump of going from having all the information on a given topic and starting to seed power for people to do it, all the way up to where you're at now, where it's like, I've got so many levels down. That expansion, did you feel like the the leadership factory, the leadership training that you got throughout, did that give you, were you ready for that? Was the foundation laid? And then, how did you feel moving up into those different levels? Obviously, there's going to be some OJT, but how prepared did you feel from our sort of leadership investment, I guess I would ask?
Yeah. No, thanks for that. For me, I think there's probably a couple things to unpack there. First, I do want to echo, we are very blessed in the military and certainly in SOF with the theory and the practitioner side of leadership. This idea that you get a bit of practitioner work, OJT, as you just join an organization, especially as we're initial entry into whether it be a team or a platoon or a flight detachment, whatever it might be, and you have an opportunity, maybe with some training beforehand, to then really work your way through it. And as I mentioned, with the great mentorship, especially in SOF, in our military these days, we just incredible leaders at the NCO, the warrant, the civilian, and the officer level. You get reps. It's like anything. You get repetitions.
Sure.
You like jumping and shooting and running, and I really think that maybe I've come to a point over time. There's a bit of nature that folks may have, but there's a whole lot of nurture, and that nurture is in the theory and the practitioner side. And then the schooling you mentioned that we get to go to in the theory side about what it means to be a directive level leader and what you have to accomplish, how you talk about end states, and how you just at the very basics of leadership is defined as taking a group of folks over time toward a desired end state through through influence and competence and collaboration at its heart. Then how do you do that at the organizational level? Well, we're not just left like many organizations, and I can't speak much about the corporate world. All I've ever done is mow golf course grass and load trucks and done some house painting and some things before I came in the Army. Yeah. But, my sense is there's a lot of OJT out there. We give pro dev. So you go back to a school and you get to learn the theory and actually be a contrarian and say, no, that's not how it goes out in the field. And then our theorist institutions get to learn from us. It's this symbiotic relationship as we kind of go through our careers. So I absolutely wanted to note how lucky I think we are, all are to be part of that, and that's why I believe many other industries or constituencies prize teammates that come out that have that, and I think so. To your question, I think at each jump, the institution and its theory and the schooling that we go to prepares you somewhat. I think the practitioner experiences, the reps, where you get a Rolodex of experiences and seeing how things play out, good or bad, plus just the mentorship, the teaming of being with your platoon or your detachment or your squad or your flight or your Raider team or any of in our Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, and now Guardian teammates, them talking to you about how they thought it went from their perspective, because we all have a view of how we think we did it. It's really nice to get that candid, unvarnished 360-degree feedback we get in AARs or just daily life and in our special operations forces that probably helps you make those jumps. And then I think watching other leaders do it helped me. Folks that we know in the organizations that we've all seen, folks like, you watch Mike Hall, you watch Pat McCauley, you watch General McChrystal, or you watch, folks out there that, Admiral McCraven, that they had, vision, but they could tell us in the vision some tactile ways to move forward. It wasn't this ethereal vision that, a company might walk in and say, make more profit. And they walk out and you're like, what does that mean? Well, if you're the accountant, you're going to save money. If you're the salesperson, you're going to go out there and spend money because and at some point you've taken the organization in two very different directions. Our leaders never did that. They would give us those names and many others, the vision of what we need to accomplish, and they could give you the first couple stepping stones, but I think the magic of SOF is they didn't oversteer it. And what we learned, and I hopefully have continued to learn and will, but I trust and believe in, is that the azimuth and direction, a little bit of a North Star, and our formation will bring you something back better than you can have ever imagined. Yeah. And you just don't oversteer it. Don't over torque it. And again, that's at varying levels, and you don't learn that the first day you walk in the door. I think it was Coach Holtz or somebody used to talk about wisdom versus knowledge. We get knowledge when you walk in. It's a data point. There's 100,000 people in an organization. That's knowledge. And over time you get wisdom, and he used to say, there's a difference. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato's a fruit. That's a data point. Wisdom is probably not putting a tomato in a fruit salad. That's a little bit of wisdom. Use it properly and know how to adjust it. And I think our formation really, it demonstrates that, and it teaches leaders, junior leaders, and I certainly count myself in at that, how to do that. So makes those jumps, especially in SOF, easier. That on any given day. Now I know Command Sergeant Major Shorter, and I know absolutely that of the 70,000 plus teammates in SOCOM, every single one of them is absolutely doing the right thing for the right reasons and pointing in the right direction every day. But what they look for us to do is almost what direction are we going?
Yeah.
What's the North Star? What's our nation need? And we owe that. And if we prescript it too much, then there's probably a point where it won't be helpful. But we've got to do it about right. And I think the SOF community teaches leaders how to do that very, very well.
Yeah, this is not necessarily a question. You brought up CSM Shorter, and I know you all had a very tight relationship already.
Yeah.
I didn't know CSM until he came here, and I'm not saying this I'm not trying to curry favor in any way because I'm retiring and there's no E10, but thanks for picking the right guy.
Yeah.
I've been struck in every interaction I've had with CSM Shorter of just the wisdom, but also there's an it factor to some folks of just they get it, and they are actual real human beings that care. And sitting down with CSM Shorter, I feel like I have the same conversations in a good way that I would if he was a team sergeant, a company sergeant. Like, he didn't become all of a sudden, hey, he's a CSM and he's lost touch with how it really happens in a team room and on the battlefield and all these things. And the authenticity that he has, I think if people have a chance to listen to the episode where we had him on, I think they'll be struck by that. But he's that same guy in every interaction I've ever seen. And I know you already knew that, so you made that selection. But, I would just say on behalf of the NCOs, thanks for a phenomenal choice there, because I think he's the right guy for this headquarters for your entire time to help really shape and bring up the NCOs. I've been struck by his candor and his authenticity as amazing. You talked about wisdom there, sir. For me, I think of wisdom as the fusion of intelligence, education, and experience become wisdom. And when, I didn't know you either, I'd heard your name, but before you were chosen here, obviously, as the JSOC commander, we had a few interactions. But when you were chosen and announced, I looked at your background and bio, and one of the things that struck me as making you really uniquely qualified for this global role as the SOCOM commander was how much experience you had across all of the geographic combatant commands. Like, a lot of us grow up in different places, and you sort of, because we want enduring relationships and we want cultural knowledge, it's like, I'm for 7th Group, I'm the Central and South America guy. Yeah, I went to Afghanistan and Iraq, but I've got a lot of this. I mean, you had the opportunity to really cross across, South America, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and obviously Indo-PACOM as you were the commander out there. Can you talk to us? You have had the opportunity to span so many different areas, continents, geographic locations, partnerships with SOF and conventional units. Can you talk to us a little bit about your comparison and contrast of having seen so many different places and different GCCs, different geographic combatant commands? What strikes you as similar and potentially different across this global landscape that you now have sort of the helm of?
Yeah. If I can, before I hit that,
I'm the king of really long, complex, compound questions. Hey, you go wherever you want, sir.
Well, first I was going to, kind of echo what you said about CSM Shorter.
Oh, sure.
Absolutely, ditto. And I'll add on top of that, as he would say, for sure, we're blessed in this organization of SOF that we have incredible talent and incredible experience and incredible bravery and just competency across all of our non-commissioned officers. And there were there was a lot of opportunities for lots of great choices, and
yeah.
and he is absolutely that, and he's representative of all that I just spoke of, as you laid it out, and that's how fortunate we are. It's this trove of riches in our non-commissioned officer, warrant officer, and civilian team in SOCOM. And I know, he'd say, and I'm certainly going to say it for myself, we're absolutely honored to be here. Having been part of the team for 30 plus years, just a chance to stay with an organization and still continue to be a part of it. It's an honor. It's all you can say, and how fortunate that we both are. To your point about seeing a number of places, in some ways it can, maybe it's a blessing and a little bit of a curse in that I wish that I could have stayed in places for long durations. And there were times I fought it, when I was in 7th Group, and I think I'd had 3.5, almost 4 years, and told to leave to go somewhere else for an assignment. You don't want to, because you know in the SOF community what that really means. You're building relationships, and at that point in places like Colombia, and I was in Ecuador, like all of us throughout both the institutions that are down there in the SOF arena, and even outside the SOF arena, as we work with other elements in many of those nations, and the people that you see kind of growing up with you, right? And so but what I feel like I can at least speak to now is I've seen that, as you mentioned, in a number of places. The similarities would be that in every one of those locations geographically, whether it be Indo-PACOM or CENTCOM or Southcom or AFRICOM, our special operations teams are doing just that. They have those relationships. They have those long-standing trusts. They have partnerships. They've made formations better, and we've been made better because we learn every time we go.
Absolutely.
More about a climate, a terrain, a way of doing business. So it's a unique symbiotic relationship that and I'll just use an example. It's maybe when a JSET or a training element goes out, I venture to say we learn as much or more than maybe the partner team does from us, and that's a really unique honor and very fortunate. I'd say the other similarities are partners and allies. They span continents, right? Some of them span the globe with us, and there's too many to name, so I'd leave somebody out. And certainly wouldn't. I'd feel bad.
Yeah. You get a call from one of your friends somewhere. Hey, man, I heard your podcast.
Yeah.
And what
about
the
me?
heck, man?
But and then there's ones that are certainly based on a continent or based on a piece of terrain, and then there's ones that are just very localized. They may be in a village or a neighborhood, and it could be in a unit or it could just be in the people there. So that would be kind of a second similarity. First is that we're doing these same things everywhere you go with our SOF teammates. Second would be the partners and allies that we have that really they're our strategic advantage in many ways as we approach the challenges of the world. Just being able to do it with many of many's as opposed to only by ourselves, and I think we've certainly learned that over and over again. Maybe a little more esoterically, I think I learned that throughout every place in the world that I've had the chance to be, humans just have hopes, dreams, and aspirations. They don't want war. They don't want conflict. They don't want tension. Most folks just want a chance to have earn a decent living and have an opportunity to take care of their family and to move forward. And if you think through the free and open, most countries want to be free to trade with who they want, and they have some form of governance and just open to new ideas. And I think that's a similarity that maybe I wouldn't have noticed if as starkly if I just maybe it's spent a preponderance of time in one location. And some of the differences may come in terms of things that would be obvious. Our ability to understand the world through the various environments that we might see, jungles, mountains, Arctic, desert. It gives us an opportunity to train in those locations, see them through different eyes, and when the mission calls for, be proficient.
Yes, sir.
And I think that we're very fortunate in that, and much of our global soft reach allows us to do it in a way that other nations and militaries can't.
Yeah.
And there are probably a couple others. Those would be the big ones, I guess, that would come to mind.
No, it's great. And, if you humor me on a story on that, just people are humans.
Mm-hmm.
I got smacked in the face on that as a young Green Beret on my first trip to Afghanistan. We climbed up this mountain, this crazy, we're hiking from 9,000 feet over 12 to get down to 11, all these things. We get up there and we're clearing this massive valley that like Americans supposedly had never been in. We're going through and we're asking, we're trying to find, because we know it's a Taliban sort of thoroughfare. They're using it for, men, weapon, and material, all these things. And so we're asking all these villagers up there, have you seen any of these guys? And everybody's obviously like, nope, never seen them. You know the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So. And we finally, we're way into this mission, and we get to this one farmer, this old guy, and I'm asking him these questions, and through the interpreter, he's like, oh yeah, Taliban, they were here last night, I let them sleep here, and whatever else, and I'm 21 years old at the time, I'm like, this terrorist sympathizer, we just broke the code. He just told us that he's helping the Taliban. And so I start to get a little bit mad about this. And through the interpreter, I'm like, what do you mean? This Taliban, you let them sleep here last night and whatever? And he's like, yep. He said, when they come and they put a gun in my face and they want to, I give them food. I let them sleep, whatever. You come today, you put a gun in my face. You ask me about them. I tell you about them. Tomorrow when they come back, they put a gun in my face and I give them, aid. And I looked around and I was like, yep. I looked over and his family was standing there. I'll never forget it. And I was like, he and I are the exact same. And he's just a human. And of course, when 12 armed guys show up, doesn't matter what color they are, doesn't matter what they look like, he just wants to feed his family. And I was like, okay, point taken. And it stuck with me forever. Exactly to your point, sir. Just humans.
Yeah, and you saw that, I would imagine, your time in Central South America.
All the time, yeah.
And to both our points, that's the world over. And I think that we learn that we start in our training courses trying to show folks that, certainly in a number of our pipelines, is, in particular what you and I are familiar with in Rob and Sage, because we know it's out there, right? We know that level of the human dynamic and speed of trust, interaction, what drives folks. That's present all over the world.
Yes,
and you get to see it as you hop from, whether it be combatant command or continent to continent, and that doesn't change really. I mean, the approach or the reasons why or some other little variable might, but the overall concept, no, that doesn't change.
One of the things that I consider myself lucky to have experienced over the last few years is, when you're down in a team room, you get a new commander at whatever level, and they sort of put out their priorities. And obviously, the further they are away from you, the less you actually get to hear the actual thought process and the importance from that leader, right?
Yeah.
Unless you happen to have the SOCOM commander come and do an all call or whatever else. I felt very blessed and lucky as a point in history to have been in this command through now as the third commander and seeing the priorities and actually being able to hear from the commander himself about those priorities. And that was one of the main reasons. Obviously, as the new commander, we wanted to get your background and all those things. I would have wanted to have you on no matter what. But as I knew that you were going to roll out your command priorities, I thought, man, what an incredible opportunity for me to hear it, but also for all of our enterprise to hear from the commander himself, like, why did he choose people win transform? And, as the, one of the people guys, as the, preservation of the force and family, we've actually, we've had a great opportunity. I've been able to hear your passion for our people, that humans over hardware is not a bumper sticker to General Bryan Fenton, right? Like every engagement we've had, I have felt the authenticity of how much you care about our folks. I just want to know, you took that and made that your number one priority, people. What was the genesis of that? As you're thinking how I'm going to start my time as the SOCOM commander, why lead with people? Yeah.
I guess back, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the organization we're in. I think as you just mentioned, those are our priorities. People win, transform, and Shane and the team of teams that is in the headquarters here, we had a chance to really think about it, talk about it, get out to the formations, on the journey to come up with them, just for a bit of a segue here to take an excursion. Sure. We wanted to be very deliberate, very thoughtful about this. It happens in places. I'm not naive. I smile a lot, but I'm not naive. I've seen stuff in the world that folks come in, they just spit out some priorities, and maybe or maybe not, they've consulted with their team of teams, and in SOF and in our formation, you can't not do that. You can't not consult. That's a recipe for disaster because of the incredible talent. And again, the NCO Corps and the Warrant Officer Corps and the Officer Corps and civilians we have in these formations. They're Renaissance people. Yeah. They're amazing. They're just the most incredible I've ever seen. So we had a chance to do what I would call some various contact points. Mm-hmm. We talked to folks that had been in SOCOM for previously. We chatted with former senior enlisted leaders. We talked to former leaders. We talked to folks that had been out of government, but had been in Congress, had been in the interagency. We talked to folks who had been from the MARSOF side and the AVSOC side and the NSW side and the USSOCOM side, and from SOF at every level. And as we gathered more and more, lines of bearing started to come. Yeah. And you know how when you're out on the range and you're shooting, you're looking for your pattern, right? Yeah. And you want that pattern to be really, really tight in our sure. In our world. But things start to just gel. Mm. And first and foremost, beyond anything we could imagine, just the word people. And, I think many of us, all of us throughout our career, you read various leadership books, or part of that is you're a practitioner and a student. And a lot of those, they either resonate in corporate world or in sports. Mm-hmm. And folks continue to mention people are the differentiator. Get the right people in your organization. That's why we work so hard on talent acquisition. Yep. For us, it'd be recruit, assess, select, train. Yes, sir. Development. That's talent development. How do you, and then retention. How do you keep such incredible people? And we do all that, and we're not perfect, but we certainly do it all in the SOCOM arena. And so, as we kept pulling it apart, better people make a better organization, better people make a better SOCOM, people. And at the end of the day, we said, listen, this is absolutely, it's our number one. It's our number one priority. It's our comparative advantage. It's the incredible folks in our formation who, there's probably a thought that you can have a really good mission and incredible resources, but if you don't have the people that believe in it, or the disenfranchised, or disheartened, or it's not going to go well. But you can have a terrible mission and limited resources and none. Yep. And I guarantee in SOCOM and SOF, we'll achieve that mission beyond somebody's wildest dreams because of the people. So we're in the people business, and we're not in a platform business. We're not in equipment. We want it. It is an enabler, but it is about our people and how we and how we select for them, how we assess and how we train. And so that certainly is at the very heart of what our number one priority is, and will continue to be as we add what I would call deliberate meat on the bones of where we'll go forward. Sure, education and experience and training and all in our people line. And we just are also blessed to be an organization that has believed that since its very founding. Absolutely. Probably before the phrase humans were more important than hardware, it was resonating in the minds of somebody in the OSS as they parachuted behind enemy lines with some little pistol and maybe a bag of money, but it was about the people they were, because they'd gone through a unique process even then, and who they were going to meet on the ground, partisans and resistance, and that's been through our history. So I think it's at the very heart of SOF, and it's our number one commitment to this organization, that people are competitive and comparative advantage, and as a result, our job is to make sure that we're certainly looking for and always trying to up our game and how we acquire the best talent, how we develop it through practitioner ways and theorist ways, our schoolhouses, and then at the end of the day, how we retain it, and that's also the family. It's our force and family is really our number one priority.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It's interesting not to get too SOCOM 101-ish on the podcast, but it's interesting because you in this seat, it's completely unique in the Department of Defense of wearing both hats of a service like taking care of man, train, and equip these people, but also operationalize and send them out to do the nation's bidding and be a force provider to the GCCs and have this global reach of being able to do it. And people span both, right? Like taking care of our folks from the force and family sort of perspective and making sure that we man, train, and equip, assess and select, all these things, but also it's a comparative and decisive advantage to have these amazing people that can be force multipliers in different places, and being able to put these talented folks that have your why and all the way down the chain of command, the intent, and are able to make mission when, as you said, everything else falls apart. All right, well, at least I know what the why is, and I'm an adaptive problem solver, and I can figure it out. And so
it's the most it's probably the most incredible trait I've watched our formation have over 30 years. This problem solving. Yeah. Again, we've all got FM 10 figure it out on how to do something, but I can't even begin to explain that in almost 3 decades of SOF, how I've seen our teammates just go to different levels and different ways of solving the problem that nobody would have ever imagined, except if you're in this formation, right? And as you see that over and over, and you come to a realization that people are the difference maker. And we talk about leadership, but leadership's also about people. A computer doesn't tell you what to do or have sentiment analysis. It's this human interaction. And, it also to be even, just more thoughtful. There were days, I think I was in some organizations way back in the Wayback Machine, where we would talk about people and say they're really important, but we'd put them number 4 or 5 on the leaderboard. Yeah. You'd look up and it would be this and that and this and that and this and that, and then the word people would be down there. Yeah. And you're like, that's not real. Audio's not matching video. And just that probably another reason is Shane and I looked at this along with the team, and we consulted many folks as we kind of thought our way through this. And certainly leadership across the components in the TSOCs, that was easy. People number one, and that absolutely is at the heart of who we are. And each and every day we recognize that's the heartbeat of SOCOM. It's the team, the people, and the families that are part of this formation.
Yeah, it harkens back. You made an incredible point earlier as we talked about leadership perspective and everything of not oversteering it. Yeah. And as you talked about that, even as we were having that conversation, I was thinking about how many times that's been, when I failed as a leader, it's because I wanted to oversteer it instead of realizing the embarrassment of riches that I had underneath me of these adaptive problem solvers that are going to come back with an amazing answer. They're going to fix it. I just need to make sure that I have put them in the right place at the right time with the right equipment, with the right end state, and they're going to make it happen. Like, I don't need to oversteer it. In fact, it's counterintuitive, and it transitions perfectly into win, right? Like, winning for the nation, obviously no fail, right? Like, we have positioned ourselves through these partnerships and everything as the force of choice in a lot of ways for a lot of problem sets across the Department of Defense and for the nation. And I'm curious, as you sit there and you think about what winning looks like in light of not trying to oversteer, but we know that if there are missteps and it has soft flavor to it, it's a huge international news thing. I'm just curious from your lens of like how do you point everyone in the direction of what winning looks like, and also not oversteer and try to lead all the commanders all the way down not to oversteer, because we've gotten to the point where we have real-time audio and video at all times, and it's very easy to oversteer, especially as you rise in the ranks and you were good at that job down there on the ground as the little guy moving on the on the audio video. It's very easy to want to be like, ugh. Yeah. What's your lens on winning, sir?
Yeah. I'm going to go backwards a little bit.
Sure.
On the people. It's a contributor. It's the main ingredient in winning in my estimation. First of all, it's easy to kind of get moving in that direction. The challenges will continue to mount, and they're very, very certainly complex. But you start from a position of that, number one, our people, right? And, I heard somebody describe a soft teammate once that, hey, soft team, they just look at the world a different pair of glasses. And I said, what do you mean? And it was great because they weren't, right? And they said, the regular human comes up and plays tic-tac-toe, they put an X, and then the next person will put an O. But if you bring a soft teammate to the board, they'll put the zero way out here somewhere, and they'll still win because they're just... that person. Some of it's nature, certainly some of it's the nurturing we do with all of our processes throughout all the components and the TSOCs and skill rater specialties to be part of this team. So that sets us up, I think, for the incredible compliment we have being labeled as a national advantage for the nation, for the president. SOF, right? What we do is been described as politically sensitive and extremely unique and needed during very critical times, and in a way that can accomplish the mission without a whole lot of fanfare. And that might not be the individual as a quiet professional, but it might be that the nation itself doesn't need a lot of attention during a time it may need to go in another direction, but the mission needs to be accomplished. And it's probably been and I'm not doing it as much justice right now in the interest of the time. It's been the hallmark of special operations probably since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
How do you and then the type of people that would choose to do them. So I think when you set that all up right now at this era, for us, winning it first and foremost is almost back to the future. It's this idea of integrated deterrence. Yeah. What is winning? And in many ways, it's this idea of deterring, dissuading, disrupting, degrading an enemy. And as you take the NDS, the focus on a pacing threat and an acute threat, pacing challenge of the PRC and an acute threat of Russia. It's this idea of deterring with all that we have as the nation. Well, in our soft portfolio, we have an incredible amount of people and tools and experiences. And I think the first and foremost in the integrated deterrence, which that we've focused on as primary for us as we go forward, it is that deterrence piece. And in many ways, we were born for this. This was, from the earliest of some formalized version of our history with the OSS and Special Forces and UDT and Air Commandos and Marine Raiders and Rangers and all that we bring and folks who do all that and part of how we get to a place and how we take care of the formation, you name it. We were doing that during the Cold War when we were competing in the same way with placement, access, and influence, partnerships, developing partners and allies, being in a place and an adversary, back then the USSR would look and we were there first. And that nation chose us, the U.S., and by default, or SOF, and then the U.S. by default as a partner. And I think in many ways we're back there again. In some integrated deterrence, strategic competition, where our skills would be absolutely at the heart of what we all have to do as a nation. And I would say that with 20 plus years now, 2 decades plus of what we've done in the CVEO, the CT fight, of just this incredible bravery and transformation and our understanding of technology and how we understand and develop networks and can smash networks. You add that to what we already brought forward, and there's no place I don't think that we can't be helpful to the nation. So, as I like to say, solving our boss's problems. The SecDef and the president and the nation in the national security arena, they've got challenges, and I think we're very appropriate and fit and trained and ready to get after them. And as you put that, and then where we go with campaigning and how we understand language and culture and regional expertise on top of our 2 decades plus of combat experience in a way that has just made us this uniquely postured force. We're not really folks have asked me where at times they talk about, can you only do counterterrorism? Are you really just CT-COM and not Special Ops Com? I'm like, oh no, no. We've had to show one side of ourselves, and we've done it very well, and with losses and hurt with those who've given their all, and our wounded warriors and Gold Star families. We've done a lot in that CT arena to go forward for the nation and protect the nation. And I think that has given us a depth of experience and reps and understanding that when you combine that with where we came from, we absolutely need to be focused on this for the nation, and we can be helpful in a very big way because it's right at the heart of who we are. It's in our DNA, frankly. It's in our bone marrow.
Yeah.
And winning looks like, I think, on that arena, deterring, dissuading, what the NDS asks us to do.
Sure.
In the CT arena, it's keeping an ex-ops threat away from the homeland. The way that it hit us so terribly on 9/11, and why we stayed and are still in that effort. And then, I think the president and the secretary look at this place for also reacting and responding to a crisis that is in our wheelhouse.
Yes, sir.
And we've always got to be ready and trained and modernized to do that. And I think the three of those with their separate win categories, when you aggregate those together and doing those with an incredible force and family, that's what winning looks like.
No, it's great. And I can't remember, CSM Shorter said this, and I can't remember if he said it on this podcast episode or just in something that we were talking about, but he was talking about that wide range of mission sets from service-like into operational and everything. And he's like, the issue is they're all no-fail. Right? Like there's obviously certain national level missions that we say no fail, but really all the way through there, like there's not just, we've got to turn this one up and we can let this one fall. Like we've got to stay across all of these. Complete curveball, and we'll cut this if you want us to. You talked about the bosses. You talk about the president and the SecDef. What's it like as Bryan Fenton when the president and the SecDef sit down and say, hey, we're going to put you in charge of SOCOM? What's that like?
Yeah. First and foremost, it's an honor to know that you get to stay with this team.
Sure.
Right. To get to stay with the SOCOM team and to be part of a formation you've been part of for 30 plus years. It's also then I don't want to let it. I'm not going to let this formation down because like all of us, we've come from platoons and teams and companies and battalions, and there are folks looking, and they invested in you a lot, and whether it be leaders or mentors or our battle buddies, and in my case, my platoon sergeants and team sergeants and sergeant majors, and that you're like, oh, okay, ruck up, get ready, and that they've prepared you, and you. It's not complacency. You got a growth mindset, but they've prepared you to take on their challenges of the organization, and to be able to get after them. I think the who's asking is certainly an honor, but I think the real piece is that they're even asking, and that means that the formation believed in you. As you're going forward, I don't know if that.
No, that's amazing.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I just think as you talked about it, there's got to be that moment where you're like, okay, the president just handed me the keys to, as General Clark used to say, basically the greatest battleship on earth, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, Do I know how to drive stick? Exactly. Yeah,
I got stick shift here,
right? Yeah, it's a big one, right? So
hey, back on winning, if I could.
Yeah, please.
No matter if we cut that part. So back on winning, if I could. I think when you think about the formation as well, it's everybody, right? Yeah. Everybody's got to be part of the ecosystem of winning. And if you back to the sports analogy, which that probably resonates with so many of us who were on teams before we got to be part of this incredible team. And this idea that everybody has to do their position, their task, their job, or else the eventual mission or operation won't happen. Yeah. So it takes the team to do it. And in that sense, there's really no one more important than the other. It's everybody's important. Because if the piece is gone, almost like the stacking tower game, and one piece comes out, the whole thing falls apart. And so I think that's probably also what brings people to soft. It doesn't matter what your skill, rate, or specialty. First, you know that you're really talented if you came to us and we brought you aboard as part of our team. Our commitment is to invest in you and make you even more talented. And then there's a bit of professional anxiety that should kind of be inside of everybody, like, in a good way, that keeps you sharp and has you know that each and every day this team, left and right, up and down, is dependent on you. And you got to be in the tiger crouch, and you got to be ready to go. Because when the mission's in flight, you can't do it without, and pick any skill, rate, or specialty you want. I won't even say any here. You can't do it without that one being in, and you got to do it with the all. So it's the sum of all the parts. And another team analogy is we talk with folks and they ask about SOF and SOCOM, and especially if it's a sports team, I say, well, tell me your schedule. Who do you play? Well, we play, USC or Oregon or Tennessee or whatever. I'm like, yeah, your SOF team, we play Al Qaeda, we play ISIS. We play other nation states. We play against crisis in the world, and we got to win every time. Every time. And we don't get an off season. We're in this constantly. And I think when you think about a team that's got that level of responsibility, it's this SOCOM team and what it does for the nation, how it solves problems for the Secretary, for the President, for all of our men and women.
Yeah. It's incredible, and I think those sports analogies do really, for a lot of us, I think some sports figures get in trouble for making the opposite one, but I mean, there are so many, there's so many parallel lines there in teaming and trying to, it doesn't matter how great your defense is, if the special teams is terrible and they run a kickoff back, you're never on the field, right?
Absolutely.
And so every piece matters. We've all seen the holder for the field goal, who's the lowest, whatever. It's the backup, third string QB. But if he doesn't do his job, it's a lost game. And 100%. What I found interesting is you started talking about people win and transform. Transform, to me, I was like, okay, yep, SOF, AT&L, acquisition technology, logistics, and all those things. And I've heard you talk about this a couple of times where, yes, that's part of it. Yeah. Transforming and making sure that we're on the cutting edge of equipment. But it goes further than that. Can you tease out what you see when you say transform?
Yeah, I can. It goes to people. You kind of when you think about the SOF team, at the very beginning, we started talking about people and our experiences and who we knew and the incredible nature of the formation. I think our first commitment in transform, as we think about what we might need to be for the future, for the complex environment, for the changing nature of things that will present challenges to this, we'll have to transform. And our first commitment is to our people. It might be the way we educate. It may be the way we acquire talent. We don't know how we develop. But I think we've got to start with the first thing that we will be willing to and commit to transform or the people of the organization. And they'll lead us to that, because that's the kind of teammates we have in this. We won't have to sit up in the ivory tower. Yeah. That's right, and worry about it. They'll pull us along. And then again, the beauty of, and you got to be comfortable and I know it's not for all teammates. That means no harm outside of the soft community, but you have to be very comfortable in some of the things that you and I just talked about earlier, and not oversteering, not. But you get there in a combination of theory and practitioner ways in our organizations, because you're around just such amazing folks that at some point when you have a task and you're able to give it to a unit, and you gave, maybe you didn't even have the best guidance, you didn't really have an idea, and they brought you back and you're like, man, this is amazing. You kind of learn over time, even when you have an idea. You might still. There's a lot of ground to be gobbled up in this amazing way. They'll bring you, the successes and efforts, and just every day. It's like, wow. And I think that's the same in terms of, as we go forward, folks will pull us in a direction where we need. We don't have to even oversteer it, but we need them to know our first transformation thing is not to a platform. It's not to a piece of equipment. It is to the teammates in the formation. Now, transform, when we talk about it, is in our priorities, is absolutely not absent technology.
Sure.
We know that what we've seen, through our soft history, technology has enabled us to do things better, faster, stronger, more effectively, and we're committed to that. And so we'll be on the hunt for the game-changing items, and that's probably invention in some ways. But we're also interested in innovation, modernization, optimization if it needs to on a piece of equipment or some type of effort. And all the above, but they seemingly fit in our estimation under transforming, starting with a person and our formation, and then moving to the type of things we will put in their hands for them to win, because mostly they're using everything they're problem solvers. And then you would see us talk about organizational transformation. Yeah. If we need to shapeshift in any way to solve the problems as we go forward, we absolutely are going to be committed to looking at that. That's about making sure that we stay relevant, we stay focused, and there are core things in every organization that, once you really take them down to the steel, you've walked all the paint off it, and all the barnacles, and they still stand the test of time. Then they're core values, core ways of doing business. But what we've seen in our own soft lifetime is when we've been willing for other things to be shape-shifted, changed, or frankly discarded, we have solved problems for the nation that they have no one could have ever imagined. And we're committed to still doing it that way.
That's phenomenal. One of my favorite things about being in SOF and really growing up and having 20 years in SOF is it's never good enough. And I don't mean that in like, we never affirm people that, hey, your effort is, all that. No, we are never okay with a 95% solution, or even today what we think is 100% solution, because we don't know what tomorrow is. And if there's any way to shave a second off, to make it better, like, we are committed. There's no like, well, that's just the way we do it. We've always done it that way. And throughout the entire organization, whether it's technology, guys being, hey, I'm going to go sew up a new pouch because I think we need to do whatever, it's just, it's so hard to explain for people that haven't had the blessing and honor to be a part of our units, to just see people. It's like a colony of ants always trying to better everything at all times. And if you're like, oh, that's good enough, like what? It's like record scratch. Like, no. We still have work to do here. And it's like, but you're the best in the world at that. Like, yeah, but we still got work to do. And I just see that when I see transform and hear you talk about it, that's what I see, is just everybody knowing it's not good enough. It's not good enough. Let's get it better. Let's get it better. And always looking for the future and not having sacred cows. Yeah. Right. Like we can't afford to say, well, this is what, our organizations looked like for the last 30 years. And that's the way it's always going to look like. It's a passion, that gets almost imbued in us, I think, as we stay, and a fire for, to your very point, this continual growth mindset. Like, okay, I know there's something else out there. And it's maybe, to your point, it's probably challenging for others who have not been in the soft community at any time to maybe fully grasp that. We hold sometimes two opposing ideas in our head at the same time, and we don't go crazy. This idea of, hey, we're really doing this well. We're not patting ourselves on the back, but folks have told us, or we've been successful. But at the same time, almost like an Olympic athlete, we're probably a little bit more. Shave off a second, shave off a millisecond, and we do that in whatever we whether it's in our marksmanship. Whether it be in our skills that whether medical training or skydiving or flying an airplane or whatever, I just see in this community this constant hum of what else is out there. It's a very different way to live. One we've obviously become very comfortable, not complacent, but comfortable being a part of, that continues to drive you
in a really unique growth mindset way. I've heard it called in some places professional anxiety.
Yeah,
That's
true.
not just this, hey, I know there's a little bit something, I can still do this well. And you're not distracted as much as you're attracted by it. And then the next thing is evolution 4.0, and then 5.0, and then 6.0. And I think that's a very powerful hum and tone and tenor. And I've talked to folks outside of SOF, and they ask me, well, what does SOCOM or SOF do? And I'll usually say, well, where are you from? And I'll pretend here. Maybe they're from a company that makes rockets or makes cars or electric vehicles. And I'll say, oh, okay, so, and you're really well known and you're credible and the world knows you make a really neat phone. And I'll say, so your product is the phone or the rocket? Yeah. Our product is national security successes for the president, for the secretary, for our nation, right? And frankly, at times for the world, as best we can trace it. And they're like, okay. I said, but our similarities are we have the same people in SOF you got in your organization. Whatever it caused you to make the fill in this game-changing thing that we all have in the world today, those teammates would feel very comfortable in our organization because they have this desire. They also know that they've been trained well. They're confident. They're humble enough. They want to chase, and they have this continuing growth mindset that allows them to hold those two ideas in their head and be really, really good. And folks just kind of look at me, almost kind of look at me like, yeah, that's right. And I said, that would be a really comfortable swap because our teammates in here, we're the same ones you got. We just make a different product. And ours is we just have to defend the nation, fight and win the nation's wars, and do national security tasks. Yeah,
and give trust to leaders above us and everyone as a partnership all the way down to the bottom level. Yeah, no, it's phenomenal, and I selfishly would sit here and try to keep you here for another hour and pick your brain because I'll just tell you I really enjoy these types of conversations to be able to dive in and pick your brain. And hear your lens on these things is incredible, and I hope that our listeners get as much of it, as much out of it as I have. But I want to be mindful of your time and close. But I want to give you an opportunity. Is there anything that you'd like to leave with our listeners? We're blessed to have this as an influence tool now that's grown. And we know we have folks that listen inside of our formation. We know that we have people up in congressional circles that listen to it, and those in the broader, U.S. and a lot of partners, right? Yeah. I'm curious, is there anything that you'd like to leave those in our formation and then those in the broader audience as we close?
Yeah, no, thanks, Matt. First, I guess I'd want to leave everybody with a big a part of the formation and Force of Family. Just a big thank you. Sure. Thank you to each and every one of them, and where they, no matter where anyone is in our formation, and how they're part of our team, right? And their families are, and I would first to them say thank you for that level of commitment. I know that when you step into a place like the Special Operations Command and SOF, more is expected. The flywheel goes faster, and the hours are longer, and the deployments are right. Yeah, that's right. Even in the world, they're like, oh, let's give it to SOF. They can do it, and the responsibilities are higher, and it's just on and on and on, and that really is as well as certainly on with the families. So first, a big thank you. That's not missed. That folks they volunteer to come here, and to do that says something about them and their families. To take on and stay says something about them and their families, and it's just an incredible gift they give their nation. And I just want to say thank you, because that's not ordinary, and that would be the first thing. Thank you to them, and our commitment, as we've laid out on the people and the Win Transform, is about that. And as we start with people, and frankly, you come back around even in Transform to people. Yeah. Something I probably didn't mention is our commitment along in the people lines to health of the force and family, and what we do in the physical fitness and the mind fitness and the nutrition and and diet and just this holistic approach that has so many things wrapped around it. And while we're not where we want to be, we want to get better every day. It's there, and we certainly want our teammates out there listening to please leverage it because it is. The second one is in that vein. Our commitment is the training. The training we want to provide folks in our organization in many ways is what will bring them home when we've got to go somewhere and do a mission. The hardest that we can get, the most rugged that we can get, the most realistic that we can get. That's a commitment from us to everybody out there. And I'm not sure everybody looks at it sometimes through that lens of, well, it's a gift. Oh, thanks. But we want it to be a heck of a lot easier in the real effort than it ever is if we give them a training event. And I know our teammates do that every day, and I'm a product of that as well. So big thank you. I think the second one that they would hear, everybody in this SOCOM team would hear from me that from our presidents and secretaries on down, over and over again, SOF is a national advantage for the nation. It's looked at that way, and I want the team to hear that. CSM and I hear it. Our other senior leaders hear it. Component commanders, TSOCs hear it. But sometimes it doesn't get to Bryan Fenton. That might be at another place in the ecosystem. And I'd want everybody out there and their families know you are a national advantage for this nation. And that's a high bar. It's a compliment, but it's also a heck of a responsibility.
Yeah.
Next, you asked me for probably one. I'm going to give you more. Next, I would want folks to know. I think, the CSM and I and the leaders of the TSOCs and the components. We'll talk about this in a third commanders conference that we've had since we've been here, because it's this idea of us all coming together to continually assess where we need to be. Is that we're probably going to be needed the next couple decades more than ever.
Yeah.
The challenges and the speed of the challenges and the way the world is turning is absolutely going to demand SOF. And integrated deterrence and strategic competition, certainly still in the countering the VEO, the extremist line. We cannot let off that. And then in the crisis response, my estimation, we're going to be needed more than ever, and that's a tall order.
Yeah.
And it's our commitment to make sure we're all ready for that, and we certainly will be. And then lastly, I'd say to the team that thank you, as you mentioned before, for being great recruiters out there. Folks look at you, and they look at folks in this formation as an opportunity to be part of this. And in an era right now where there's challenges in recruiting, we haven't seen those same challenges in SOF, but we can't be complacent. We have to stay ready and stay helpful, and also help our services bring focus. We're a recipient in SOF, as you mentioned, on our service-like side of the services bringing us teammates through the Army lens, the Marine Corps lens, the Navy lens, the Air Force lens, and the Guardian lens. And we recognize that, and we owe a big responsibility back. So I would ask teammates to continue to be the great recruiters out there. And if you'll allow me for a minute, there are times where we're not at our best. And what I mean by that, there's still behavior in the formation, and we've seen some even lately. That's it is absolutely not consistent with what this SOCOM team stands for. It's not consistent with the decades of efforts that teammates like you and everybody I saw at your retirement yesterday, the sergeants, majors, and the key teammates and the warrants and the officers that spoke about you have done for this nation and this enterprise, and they demean those. They tarnish that in the behavior that's done, and just acts of ill discipline and not professional. It also hits at the credibility of the SOCOM team, where senior leaders rightly look and they ask us questions about, do you have a bigger problem? And so I would ask teammates, first and foremost, I know the formation out there is by and large, they're angry about that kind of behavior. It does take away from where we're supposed to be focused and what our force and family, as a national advantage, provide back to the nation in terms of efforts. And I would want teammates out there to know that I hear that I know that this formation is angry, and that your leaders, and I'm asking all to be committed to that type of behavior not being part of who we are, behavior that's intolerant or harassing or does things like drugs or frankly treats people without dignity and respect. And at the very culmination puts the individual over the organization. And that's not that's not who everybody I've grown up with. It's not who this organization is about. It's been about selfless service and sacrifice for the nation above the individual. And I think when those behaviors exhibit themselves, that's really what I think about very first off. That's above the organization. That's about an individual. Whereas the rest of the team is going about their mission.
It's the antithesis of everything else
quiet
that we
professional,
do.
right?
Absolutely.
So, but on a last note, I just want the team out there to know I know I speak for CSM Shorter and Leslie, his lovely bride, and Dawn and I on our team. We're just honored to be part of this team, and certainly look forward to many more conversations just like this.
Yeah, well, sir, I can't thank you enough. As I said, just for me personally, the opportunity to be able to have this conversation. I know that as the season finale of season 4, people are going to enjoy this, and I know that we are going to be able to have you on again and be able to dive into individual sort of, different silos of that and dig down deeper. But just an awesome opportunity first to say, okay, who's General Fenton? Where's he come from? But then to be able to hear straight from you the passion, the authenticity. Like, it wasn't just like, okay, let me reach in the hat and like what my priorities are going to be. All right, got people. What else is in there? Oh, when? Okay, really a lot of, I had the opportunity to talk to CSM Shorter about some of those focus groups that you all did. And I thought that was really interesting, knowing how much time you already had in the formation. You didn't come in with like, all right, I already got it figured out. Like, these are my priorities. It was like, all right, I'm going to take some time and be intentional and thoughtful about this. And I want the input of people that were there when SOCOM was founded, people who are leaving the seat that I'm going into, and everyone in between. I thought was really great. And on behalf of us as the Softcast team, thanks for making the time and coming on and giving us so much of your time. Really an awesome opportunity. And to all of you out there as listeners, hey, thank you for listening to this episode and to listening to all of season 4. I will tell you, I think it's been a phenomenal season. It's been an absolute honor. We've had some amazing guests, and I know that if you haven't caught up on some of the previous ones in season 4, please take the opportunity to go back and check them out. Also, wherever you're listening or watching this, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, or whatever podcast platform you're listening to it, please go down, share it, give us a review. If there's somebody that is in your circle or in your formation on your team that you think could get the same amount of value out of this as you did from listening or watching, please, hey, send it to them on a text message, email, whatever it is. These things are meant to be used and to spark conversation down in the team rooms and around the organization. So on behalf of all of us, last thing, if you got an idea, if there's somebody you want to listen to, somebody you want to hear from, please let us know, softcast@socom.mil. And we appreciate all of your feedback. And thank you for joining us, not just on this episode, but for another amazing season of Softcast.